as well as the diversity that Deal provides to Shepherd. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trimble. Mr. Tansey.
Hi, my name is David Tansey. I'm a teacher at Dunbar Senior High School, a math teacher. And first of all, I'd like to say, like one of the previous panelists, I don't disagree with any effort at consolidation. I think there's a sort of financial decision to be made there, but I have come here today to make two different arguments. First, that I believe DCPS should be specific in how the money saved by closing schools will be spent. I believe that the money should be spent rescinding some of DCPS's budget austerity measures that were taken last year. Second, with the assumption that some of these buildings will be made available to charter schools in the future, I believe that these closures should be conditional on charter schools moving to adopt some type of neighborhood priority in admissions. If a school is going to be closed in a neighborhood, I believe that a similarly accessible school option should be made available. In both of these areas, I believe DCPS has done a poor job of including the public in decisions that have very real implications for the public. I find it disturbing that the public has so little input in deciding what schools should be closed. When taking away public amenities, every effort should be made to involve the public. If there was a pressing budget shortage, it would be understandable that the public outreach would be lessened. Since that is not the case here, I see no excuse for the exclusion of the public in this loss of public facilities. I think one example of something that could be done, including the public doesn't just have to be, what do you want to close? It can be enrollment initiatives and things like that to say, yeah, parents like at some of these schools, effort, work with them before you start saying we're going to shut down your school. I'm also bothered by the fact that so little information has been given on how the money that presumably will be saved will be spent. If these closures are not being prompted by an urgent budget deficit, then this too should be part of the public discourse. As an educator who feels that last year's austerity measures lower the quality of education that we are able to provide our students, I believe that whatever money is saved through these closures should be spent rescinding some of those measures. Our students would benefit from more librarians and from lower student-to-teacher ratios. Finally, I believe we need to address the fact that public resources being taken away from the public in the affected neighborhoods. I think this can be ameliorated by having any charter schools that move into these buildings be required to provide a limited neighborhood preference in admissions. They can still have same admissions requirements, just give a limited preference to kids who live nearby. Finally, education reform in DC has been a priority for 5 years now. I understand why DCPS was given as much discretion as they were 5 years ago. The system was deemed failing and needed immediate help, but great latitude comes with high expectations. 5 years later, the school system is still struggling much like it was when the reforms began. That doesn't mean we should stop reforming our schools, but I think it does justify requiring greater public accountability and public participation. I feel that the way the school closure process has been conducted indicates that DCPS doesn't seem willing to hold itself to the high standard of civic leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tansey. Let me see, Mrs. Brown.
Yes. Greetings, council members, council chairman, chancellor, and community members. My name is Allyson Brown. I'm with Teaching for Change, a DC-based nonprofit. I'm a former teacher with 7 years of experience working directly in and with public schools, and I hold a master's degree in public administration. I'm also here as a resident of Ward 4, a voter, and a future parent of children who I would like to attend public schools in the District of Columbia. Teaching for Change partners with several DC public schools to engage and empower parents through our Telling Stories project. None of our school partners are on the list to be closed, but that does not matter. We are here today to call for a moratorium on school closures and stand with the communities directly impacted by this proposal. We talk about evidence-based practices in education. Well, a 2011 report from the Pew Charitable Trust looked at school closings in 6 urban districts, including the District of Columbia, and reached several conclusions. One, this is the reason why we're all here. The study found that there was no proof that closing schools is beneficial to students. And it should be noted that this study included the latest round of school closures in DC. A second conclusion it found was that the money saved as a result of closing schools, at least in the short run, had been relatively small in the context of big city school districts. The largest savings were achieved when school closures were combined with large-scale layoffs. A third point that came from this study, selling or leasing surplus school buildings many of which are located in declining neighborhoods, tends to be extremely difficult. No district has reaped anything like a windfall from such transactions. I live across the street from the basketball courts of Rudolph Elementary. That school's been closed for some time. I've heard there are plans for it to be occupied, but I have not seen any. I'm assuming there's been some trouble with selling the building. Closing schools is not a marker of accountability. It is not a comprehensive plan for education, and it does not ensure that each child gets the best possible education. The district needs a comprehensive plan to provide the children of DC with a high-quality public education. This plan should include specific strategies to meet school and student needs. It should factor in DCPS school closings. It should also include recommendations for school boundary changes and address charter schools openings and closing. There needs to be a comprehensive plan that brings it all together. We don't see a vision. The chairman mentioned before is that, do we want to keep a building open if it's only 20% occupied? Well, what happens when DCPS gets to 20% occupancy? Where's the vision? Finally, I would like to say, as I said, I would like to send my children to DC public schools. I want them to be proud of those schools, and I don't think any children in the District of Columbia deserve less than that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. McLeod.
I'm Ann McLeod, and I am a parent of a first grader at Garrison Elementary in his third year at the school.
We're also funded through grants from foundations. We do receive funding through the Children and Youth Investment Trust as a parent center. To engage parents, we have an excellent record, and feel free to look up more about our approach online. And we also receive funding from the Mayor's Office of Latino Affairs.
Well, I definitely will. Now, you stated that none of the schools that you directly work with are on the list for closure.
Correct.
And I'm wondering, have you done any work in Ward 7?
Not what we would love to. We are currently working with a school in Ward 8, where this year we're in Wards 8, 2, and 5, and we've also done work in Wards 1 and 4. And we work only in Title I schools or in public charter schools that essentially have Title I status.
Okay. So would you be willing, because that seems to be the issue, the issue with a lot of our parents in Ward 7, that we want our schools to be improved before we actually bring our children back into those schools, before we invest in those schools. Mm-hmm. So in terms of teaching for change and social justice in the classroom, would you, ideally, your organization, be able to look at the total makeup of the school, the parents, the students, and see what the best remedy may be, or what some suggestions may be to bring that school up to par?
Our approach starts with listening with the parents. One of the very first things that we do is ask the parents to share their joys and concerns about the school. And what we find is when you open those channels, parents don't just want to gripe. They have a lot of things that they are proud of and they want to see more of in their schools. And not only that, they are willing to put in the work. So where you have parents who can't necessarily give to the PTA, they can't write the big check to contribute to the school in that way. We have parents in our schools who volunteer on a regular basis. They noticed that the librarian was overwhelmed, and we're thankful the school still had librarians. So parents came in and volunteered in the library. Parents noticed in one of the classrooms that the custodial work was not up to par, and actually organized, and there's a group of 7 preschool parents who go and clean the classrooms because the children were getting sick. So parents want to do that work.
And do you actually advocate for parents that may not have as strong a voice for their child? Can you look at those deficiencies that may occur too?
That's particularly who our approach is designed to reach. It was designed in DC with immigrant, low-income African-American families to help parents who did not have a voice and who the traditional methods of engaging with parents, expecting them to show up to the PTA meetings. That doesn't work for all parents. The same way that a singular approach to education doesn't work for all children. So we're here to also speak for parents. Thankfully our parents aren't here having to advocate for their schools, but there are many, many parents at the schools that are being closed who have not had the chance to advocate on behalf of their children, and it's not for a lack of wanting quality education.
Well, just like the parent from Garrison, and I commend you and all your community's work for what you've done, but that just doesn't exist in every community. So organizations like you are truly needed, and I implore you to work closely with the Ward 7 Education Council and to come to some of the community meetings. I will definitely be following up with you.
Please do, and I can tell you one area where we've had various conversations with DCPS in the past. We're very pleased this year that we're actually working with all the Head Start family coordinators. So they're actually receiving continuous training with us for how do you reach those parents, because they want to contribute in one form or another, and it's not necessarily the way that we have in mind. So we ask that you, by all means, we started in DC. Our approach was designed in DC, and we would love to see DCPS listen to parents, really find ways to listen to parents and create those channels, and we'd love to be a part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Alexander. Councilmember Wells?
Thank you for everyone's testimony. You know, Ms. McLeod, in general, I'm very supportive of the Chancellor, and I will have to say